start the group 2 and we will be discussing the drugs and its effects to individuals and society. But before that, here is an energizer for you to boost your energy and for you to be able to listen very well with our discussion.
This game is called Guess Me Please. I have the flashcard here and all you need to do is to say yes it is if the picture is good to our body and no it's not if otherwise. Okay, let's start. Thank you everyone for participating.
So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed the energizer that we prepared to you. So before that, for you to be able to understand the main discussion, let's define first what is drugs. So drugs are the substances that change a person's mental or physical state. They can affect the way your brain works, how you feel and behave, your understanding, and your senses. This makes them unpredictable and dangerous, especially to young people. What is drug addiction? So drug addiction is a chronic disease characterized by compulsive or uncontrollable drug-seeking use despite the harmful circumstances and changes in the brain that can be long-lasting. These changes in the brain can lead to harmful behaviors that can be seen in people who uses drugs. So, drugs can also be a relapsing disease. So, what do we mean by relapse? This is a return to drug use after an attempt to stop. Let's move on to the chemical classification of drugs. First, we have opioids, derived from the drug opium or synthetic version that mimic the chemical structure of opium. This class of drugs interacts with neurotransmitters in the brain to block signals. Opioids are powerful. They cause both intense feeling of pleasure and back pains. Opioids addiction is significant and is increasingly becoming the most serious addiction crisis facing America today. Next is alcohol. Alcohol is one of the most widely abused substances across the world. It's legal to consume alcohol in the US, even though alcohol is a central nervous system depressant and it causes a severe or long-term damage in the liver. Alcohol creates feelings of pleasure and lowers inhibition. Next, we have the benzodiazepines and the barbiturates. These drugs function by interacting with a neurotransmitter called GABA or the gamma-aminobutyric acid. These drugs impacts the body and mind differently but generally create a calming and sedative effects, often prescribed to treat a variety of psychiatric and sleep conditions, and they are highly addictive. So we must use a little of this if we have sleep conditions or variety of psychiatric to avoid addictions. Next, we have cocaine and other stimulants. These drugs accelerate the activity of the CNS or the central nervous system, making the body or the person energized, focused, and alert for a long period of time. The converse reaction of this, if a person is using one of these stimulants like marijuana, ecstasy, or cocaine, they may feel edgy, paranoid, and angry. Most cases here in the Philippines, we can see the drugs that are more used for drug addiction are the marijuana and shabu. Next is we have the inhalants, mostly consumed through breathing. They can exist through vapor form in a room temperature. Mostly inhalants can be found in household items, so they are often used by adolescents and children. They tend to be less addictive than other substances but are incredibly dangerous. I've observed that the most used inhalants here in the Philippines are the rugby because as what I've observed in Tacloban City, many children uses this in the street and that is very sad. Next, we have the hallucinogen. By interacting with the CNS or the central nervous system, this class of drugs alters the perception of reality, time, and space. Why? Because if a person uses drugs, These types of drugs, hallucinogen, they might hear things, see things that only them can see or hear, without them knowing that in reality, that scenery or situation don't exist. The last classification of drugs is the cannabis. Cannabis is one of the most widely used drugs across the world. Cannabis affects the cannabinoid receptor in the brain. This drugs comes in many different forms and affects each user differently. One example of this is the marijuana. Marijuana is often so we can see marijuana in the television because most drug addict here in the Philippines use marijuana.
The effects of drugs abuse on health. So drug effects on behavior. Substance use disorders can lead to multiple behavioral, both in short and long term, which can include, so the first one is paranoia. So it become people paranoid when their ability to reason and making things breaks down. Also, we have the aggressiveness. It is the quality of being likely to attack other people or animals or to behave in a violent or angry way towards them. And the third one is the hallucinations, are where you hear, see, smell, taste, or feel things that appear to be real but only exist in your mind. And also addiction. It's not having control over doing, taking or using something to the point where it could be harmful to you. And also the impaired judgment. It is a medical condition that results in a person not being able to make good decisions because of underlying medical problem such as environmental factors, diet, drugs, and alcohol. And we have the impulsiveness. So it is a tendency to act without thinking. For example, run across the street without looking. And also loss of self-control, to be able to control one's feelings or actions. And we have the side effects of drug addiction may include a weakened immune system, increasing the risk of illness and infection, and also heart conditions ranging from abnormal heart rates to heart attacks and collapsed veins and blood vessels, infection from injected drugs. Nausea and abdominal pain, which can also lead to changes in appetite and weight loss. Also increased strain on the liver, which puts the person at risk of significant liver damage or liver failure. And also seizures, stroke, mental confusions, and brain damage, and also Lyme disease. Problems with memory, more attention, and decision making, which can make daily living more difficult. And also global effects of drugs on the body, such as breast development and men, and increases in body temperature, which can lead to other health problems.
Effects of drug addiction on the brain. So all drugs like nicotine, cocaine, and marijuana can affect the brain. So we call it as a reward circuit, where it is part of our limbic system that can affect the instinct and mood of the user. So drug targets this system, which causes a large amount of dopamine, where the brain chemicals helps to regulate our emotions and feeling of pleasure. So basically, this system processes our feelings and emotions towards a certain action. Like for example, if we're happy, it regulates and reacts to our entire body. And also, this flood of dopamine is what a personal, community, and environmental health causes a high. It is one of the main causes of drug addiction. So additionally, the alcohol can have a short and long-term effects of the brain, and that can be disrupt the brain's communication pathways. It can influence our mood, our behavior, and other cognitive functions in communicating to other people. The way we deliver our message through tone and pitch of our voice may be misunderstood and form a conflict to the other people. So once we engage alcoholic drinks, it affects to our body, most especially to our mood. It leads to a bad behavior to a users, where a users ruin a certain things or a certain stuff to its proper key. And also brain damage occur through nutrition deficiencies, alcohol induced seizure, and liver diseases. And aside from it, it also gives a diseases like lung cancer to the users. And on the other hand, when the pregnant woman exposed to alcohol, it can impact the brains of unborn babies that resulting in fatal alcohol spectrum disorders. And some of the fatal may result to malnutrition and underweight to the unborn baby.
Schools and drug abuse prevention. Drug abuse prevention is a commonly used term, but what does it really mean? And what does it mean to schools? Drug prevention or drug abuse prevention has three main components. The first is demand reduction strategies. These strategies aim to reduce the desire and willingness to obtain and use drugs and to prevent, reduce, or delay the uptake of drug use. They may include abstinence-oriented strategies. These strategies aim to take people away from the lure of drug abuse through policy formulation, preventive education, research, treatment, rehabilitation, and integration, provision of alternative development programs, and forging cooperation with regional and international agencies and counterparts. The second is supply reduction strategies. These strategies aim to disrupt the production and supply of illicit drugs, as well as the limit access and availability of illicit drugs in certain contexts. In the school setting, this includes measures taken to limit the use, possession, and sale of illicit drugs on school premises. These strategies aim to take away drugs from public through market denial operations and prevention of diversion from the licit to illicit market, and reduce the proliferation of illegal drugs through sustainable alternative development programs of law enforcement. The third is strategies to mitigate the negative health and social consequences of drug use. These strategies aim to reduce the impact of drug use and drug-related activities on individuals and communities. The role of the school in drug abuse prevention. It is possible and desirable for schools to be concerned with drug demand reduction and drug supply reduction and mitigating the health and social consequences of drug use with the major focus on demand reduction. However, education authorities should not accept sole responsibility for changing students' health.
Good day, ma'am. I'm Gisama Estrada Edisa. I will be continue to discuss the guiding principle for school-based education for drug abuse prevention. The purpose of the present guiding principle for school-based education for the drug abuse prevention is to express the concepts and values upon which legislators, policymakers, school administrators, teachers, students, parents, and community agencies can be based decision about school-based education for drug abuse prevention. Education for drug abuse prevention in school may be defined as the educational programs, policies, procedures, and other experiences that contribute to the achievement of broader health goals of preventing drug use and abuse. Next is the guiding principle can convey a sense of direction towards the ideal with associated guidelines, can confirm that plans are as close to the ideal as they can be and given the situation and the circumstances. However, they should not be seen as so idealistic and rigid as to convey a sense that nothing can be achieved unless programs and policies reflect every principle to its extreme ideal. Much can be and has been achieved in resource for settings for school already have the resource most needed for success. Committed teachers and students who want to be engaged meaningfully in the education process. These guiding principles can be ensured that scarce resources are not wasted on programs and resources that have a superficial immediate appeal but do not meet the criteria for the achieving learning outcomes or long-term changes to the school environment that will impact on the future drug abuse. This guiding principle help to define the central role of the teacher and stress the educational rather than the preventative focus of school-based education for drug abuse prevention. Their Adoption will help to reduce the use of ineffective programs that place students at risk by giving parents and community a false sense of confidence that their children are being helped when in fact they are not. The guiding principles have been developed in consultation with a group of practitioners including youth, experts, policy makers, and researchers from numbers of countries who made professional judgment after consideration of the available research and current practice in school-based drug education. So now we proceed the principles of drug abuse. So principle number 1 is an emphasis on learning outcomes, environmental factors, and collaborative partnerships is vital to the success of school-based education for drug abuse prevention. So, schools that aim to change drug use behavior directly risk failing to achieve in since the target is not under their control. It ought to be recognized that schools influence behavior through the development of students' knowledge and skills and the cultivation of values. This in turn requires sufficient time to be allocated to achieving clearly stated learning outcomes and collaborative partnerships with the family and the community to be developed in atmosphere supportive of personal and academic growth. Next principle is drug-related learning outcomes should be addressed in the context of the health curriculum or other appropriate learning area that can provide sequence, progression, continuity, and links to other health issues that impact on students' lives. Isolated programs cannot provide the ongoing, comprehensive, and developmental elements that encourage development of personal and social skills and values, just as drug abuse does not exist in a vacuum but is part of the young person whole life. Education for prevention should incorporate other issues important to young people, including adolescence development, stress, coping, sexuality, collaboration between home and school, and personal relationship. The next principle is the school environment should be conducive to achieving educational outcomes and building productive partnerships. Students respond positively to a school environment comprising the culture, milieu, ethos, sense of community, goals, and a sense of order, in which they feel that they are treated fairly. Students benefit when School 16 is purposeful, when school make clear what students should know and do and how those outcomes are to be achieved and measured. So the next principle is collaborative partnership should be developed for decision making. Students, school personnel, parents of prevention, practitioners, referral agencies, and the wider community should collaborate to make decisions on drug policy, including the management of drug incidents, with a collaborative approach to policy development and reinforces desired values and consistent behaviors at school, in the home and among the community. The next principle is teaching and learning should be interactive. Interactive teaching is a techniques such as discussion, brainstorming, decision making, assertion, training, or role-playing new skills and behavior stimulate the active participation of all students. A supportive classroom climate is promoted by the conducting activities in smaller groups, which encourages peer-to-peer communication and maximum participation. So the next principle is the educational programs for the prevention of drug abuse should be responsive and inclusive. So educational programs for the prevention of drug abuse should take into account levels of drug use among individuals and in society, risk and protective factors, gender and ethnicity, culture, language, developmental level, ability level, religion, and sexual orientation. Interacting with the students in a way that acknowledges the reality of their backgrounds and experience creates opportunity for meaningful students' input into education for drug abuse prevention programs. Students react positively when their individual needs and the needs of user and the non-users are acknowledged and communication channels are kept open without drug use be condoned. The next principle is training teacher in drug abuse prevention education enhances the impact and sustainability of drug abuse prevention and programs. This principle is offering teachers professional development existing of an orientation to drug abuse prevention education that enable them to use a range of learning strategies, resource offering training only and the use of a specific program or resource. To ensure that programs have greater impact and sustainability, teachers should be offered the support of school leaders as well as technical advice and networking opportunities for sharing both successes and problems. And the next principle is program strategies and resources should be designed to support the teacher, to help achieve drug-related learning outcomes, and to contribute to the long-term improvement of the school environment and ethos. This principle, school-based education for drug abuse prevention and 17 drug education programs and resources should be selected to complement the role of classroom teacher with external resources enhancing not replacing that role. The credibility of the teacher role in meeting students' need may be a compromise where externally developed programs are imposed in schools. So the next principle is drug abuse prevention programs and their outcomes should be evaluated regularly to provide evidence of the worth and improve the design of future programs. Some drugs abuse prevention education programs are not effective and some are not counterproductive. So schools can avoid poor practices if they refer to principles, guidelines, and models of good practice as standards to inform and guide the evaluation of programs and outcomes. So that is the principle 9. And the last principle is the policies and procedures for managing drug-related incidents at schools should be collaboratively developed and widely publicized in order to elicit a positive response. Some responses to drug use may marginalize and stigmatize students. Detection of drug use with a solely punitive outcome is not a productive strategy unless the health and safety of the school community is being compromised and could alienate students at risk from the only place where individuals and activities.
There are different types of medications may be useful at different stages of treatment to help a patient stop abusing drugs, stay in treatment, and avoid relapse. This medication helps people who are addicted to drugs make them lessen their addiction to it. This is for controlling withdrawal symptoms, prevent relapse, and treat co-occurring problems. Medications and gadgets can be employed. Here are the devices that can help treat drug addiction. So what are these medications? Different types of medications may be useful at different stages of treatment to help a patient stop abusing drugs, stay in treatment, and avoid relapse. First is the withdrawal. During detoxification, detoxification means the treatment given to people who are addicted to drugs or alcohol in order to stop them from being addicted. These are the medications and technologies can assist to decrease withdrawal symptoms. Detoxification is not therapy in and of itself, but rather initial stage in the process. The next is the staying in treatment. It is when the individual admits that they have a problem and opens up to seeking treatment for the addiction. For this to happen, they have to realize a motivation for getting sober, understand that they have an addiction, and willing to work for it. The last is relapse prevention. It is the type of medication can help patients reestablish normal brain function and reduce cravings. People who use many drugs, which is fairly frequent, require therapy for all the drugs they take. This relapse prevention is it can help the patient to bring back their normal brain function, and it is for them to reduce the cravings of their addicted to drugs.
That's it for our discussion. I hope everyone listened very well, and don't forget those information or discussion that we've presented to you, because in the future it can help you to share it to other people that need to hear this information. And let us not forget that drugs is a very dangerous activity that we must not engage, especially to us young people, because we are still learning and curious about things. So through this discussion, I hope you will be aware of those consequences if you engage in this kind of activity and this illegal activity. So I hope through also this discussion, you will share this information to other people and for them to be aware also. So we've discussed the different kinds of chemical classification, the different kinds of drugs that we must not avoid. For example, the alcohol, inhalants, hallucinogen, and so on. So that's it for the sum up. And then we've prepared 2 questions for you to answer. You can comment those answers in the comment section below. And that's it for our discussion, and thank you for listening and watching.